Hi there, and welcome back to today's episode. As many of you know, I've just come back from a month-long artist residency in Finland, and so for today's episode, we're doing things a little bit differently. I've asked my dear friend Lené Ehlers, a fellow artist from Cape Town, South Africa, to have a conversation with me about my experience at the residency. I thought this would be a nice way to give you a glimpse into my experience. We talk a little bit about my background and why I decided to go to this residency, and then we talk about my experience. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Oh,
Oh, yay!
hello everyone, welcome to my podcast. My name is Lené and I'm interviewing Lezanne today.
Thanks for having me, Renee. Oh, yeah,
Okay,
it feels strange to be on the other side. I'm so used to asking the questions.
I know, but I'm so glad that I can ask the questions because you recently had a very exciting, I would say, like adventure in your
Hmm.
creative life. So that is what we're going to talk about today. But let's zoom out a bit and let's start with the question, were you always creative, or when did you feel like you see yourself as a creative person? Like, what was your
Hmm.
creative part in life?
Yeah, interesting. I often start the podcast episodes with this question because I think it's an interesting question, and it feels strange to have to answer it myself. I don't think I always saw myself as a creative, but I think I always had a natural. I was always drawn to creative things, and so in school I did many creative things. Did ballet, did music, but I was always drawn to the visual arts, but never explored it as a young person. And I would say only as a into my adulthood, I really started seeing myself as a creative and realizing that it's an important part of who I am that I want to nurture. And so the creative aspect of who I am, that part has become more and more important to me. Hence why I went on a residency, I guess, this um, wanting to invest in that part of myself. So yes, I think that's a short answer.
And then,
Mm.
so what did you study? What was your first, almost your first life
Mm.
before you went into the creative side of things?
Mm. Yes, so I studied occupational therapy. I've always been interested in working with people and um, helping people develop their full potential. And so occupational therapy also has a creative element to it. And I think in that sense, I felt that it was a good fit for me. And so fully explored that field, worked in the UK, went back to South Africa, started my own practice, worked in my own practice in South Africa within the field of vocational rehabilitation. So I did that for quite a while. And during that time started doing art as a hobby, really started exploring it in that sense. And then over time it became more and more important, and at some point transitioned into working as a coach, retrained to work as a coach, and now I'm in some way combining all these things that I do, working with creative business owners, because of my own experience of running a business and being a creative, and also bringing my experience as an occupational therapist and a long period of time of working with people and understanding what it takes to help someone develop. Yes. So that's it in a nutshell.
And I find people that have like totally different, like people that weren't always creatives, that like went out into the world and explored something totally different. They have a very unique lens then on art when they eventually come to art. So very cool journey that you're on, and how that feeds into what you're creating now. Okay, so you mentioned the residency. Let's chat about the residency. Where was it, and for how long was the residency?
Yes. So it was in Finland, 2 hours north from Helsinki in Aminkiru, um, and it was at Arteles Creative Center, started by Timu, and it was for 1 month, and they have different residency programs. I was part of the one called Back to Basics, where the focus is on not having any digital distractions. So we on the second day of the residency, they take your phone and they keep it for the entire month, so you don't have your phone at all, and you have very limited exposure to internet. So for the first week, no exposure, and then as the residency goes on, there's certain amount of time each week where you have a little bit of internet, so you can contact your family and just tell them that you're still doing well. Um, but the idea is to have as little digital distraction as possible. So that was a big focus for this residency. Yeah, so this is the longest residency that I've been on. So the two of us, we obviously met in the residency in France, which was 2 weeks long. So it was interesting being on a residency for this long, with this specific focus.
Hmm. And did that whole digital, did that draw you to the residency, or what was your pull towards this specific residence? Because there are so many to choose from.
Yes, it can be tricky to know, which one to choose.
Yeah.
Um, to be honest, I value recommendations. So if I have a contact who's already been to a residency, that gives you a little bit of information about their experience. So I've got a fellow artist friend here in Edinburgh, Carolina, and she attended this residency. She told me about it. I don't know if I would have heard about it if it wasn't for her. And she really spoke very highly about her experience, and she's been back a second time. So I think that said something to me, the fact that she spoke so highly of it. Um, and then I think secondly was there's a very strong nature component. So the residency is right next to a forest, and she also explained, or she mentioned that the forests are just amazing. And I'm very much drawn to nature, and often my work centers around nature as well. So I that was a big part of it. And then no digital distractions. I think that was a very strong draw card for me. And I wanted to see what that would do for me as a person as well as my art practice.
And what is your finding? So curious because obviously
Oh.
social media is such a big part of our
Mm,
lives now. But I mean, like, if you
mm,
stay at home and you don't go on a residency, you won't be able to not look at your phone. So, like, you actually have to be in a place where they
mm.
force you to.
Exactly. It's just such a big part of our lives these days. So it was interesting. I think I can talk about the sort of building up to the residency. I remember that there was a time where it felt a little bit daunting. I think just because we're so used to having technology, and for me, being in Edinburgh and a lot of friends and family in South Africa, it's also a big way of connecting with people. Um, so I wondered what it would be like. And then as the residency got closer and closer, I got more and more excited about experiencing it. And when it finally happened, I was ready because I think I prepared myself, and I also anticipated. I wanted to see what it was like. Um, so I was ready. I didn't miss my phone at all. I missed certain people that I connect with, but I didn't miss my phone. Didn't miss my laptop. And I think it offered a wonderful experience of just being fully immersed in what it is that I'm doing. And I felt that I was much less distracted. Less distracted by social media, and also less distracted by my experience of what other people are doing. I felt like I was just very much connected to my own experience. And obviously this is a very unique experience, which is in some ways separated from my usual life. So I also recognize it like that. but not having the digital distraction meant that I was really just engaged in what I was doing. I think what was also interesting was the way that it impacted on the connection with the other artists on the residency, because we had each other, we had to rely on each other, and yeah, with no or very limited contact from the outside world. The other thing that was really interesting, and they actually prompted us to sort of notice that or be aware of that during the residency, was how when you don't have ChatGPT, you don't have Google, there's not this external source that you consult, how we can actually rely on ourselves, as in, when you don't know something, you can just pause for a moment and tap into what you know already, and that's fascinating to actually realize, well, actually I do know this thing. To give an example, so they mentioned, before we go completely offline, think about the things that you might need. Like, is there a recipe that you like to cook, or would you like to download some music? So prepare beforehand. And there's a few recipes that I wanted to make, so I downloaded those. And then the one night I wanted to make chocolate sauce. My mom has a recipe for chocolate sauce, which is amazing. And then for some reason I didn't download this recipe. I thought I had all the ingredients, and I just thought, well, I've made this recipe so many times. I'm just going to make it. I'm just going to wing it and think about the way that I use the ingredients, and it came out really well. And then, so it worked. I was able to find a way through. And also navigating ourselves, because there's we had cars available to us, and we could drive to the public sauna or the shops, using only maps and memory. And that was an interesting experience, and navigating within the forest without a phone. So all of those examples, um, yes, thinking about how do we navigate life when we just rely on ourselves and our own knowing, trusting ourselves, and also making use of the collective, relying on the other people that's there.
Mm.
So yes, quite a few ways in which it colored the experience. The fact that there wasn't any digital, any connection to internet. Yeah.
And I can imagine that is like such a new experience for many people. Did you get any like guidance? Did the residency kind of coach you through it a bit, or yeah, was there any
Not
like
not
that?
really. I mean, they did send us an information sheet beforehand, so we were well prepared. They did explain, this is what you
Okay.
can expect, this is how you prepare for it, make sure that you bring a book to read, think
Yeah.
about the things that you would like to do. But in terms of the experience, I think for each person it will be different. So and then you've got the other artists there, so you can rely on them. But
Mm.
I think everyone had a very pleasant experience when it comes to that. Um, and now, after the residency has ended, we're still in contact, and we're talking about how do we make what we learned or what we experienced there, how do we let that filter into our day-to-day lives? We all use social media technology for our business, and I'm a supporter of using those tools. I also use it for my business, but to use it in a way that makes sense and that serves us. So I think we're at that stage now, thinking about how to do that.
Hmm. And Lizon, how big was the group? How many artists were
Mm.
there?
We were 13.
Okay, that's a nice
Mhm.
in-between number. It's not as big as the
Mhm.
French one, but I mean, I had a
Yes.
residency last year in Greece where it was me and two other people. So it's like very big to very small. So 13 is like a nice
Yes.
in-between number.
Yes. It's interesting how the number of people influence the experience. So I've not been on a residency yet where there's such a small number of people. So for me, this was a great number. We were able to cook together, and we would have these communal meals. I think the people that you're with on a residency ends up being a big part of the experience. Well, that's my experience so far.
Yes, for
Um,
sure.
what was
Yeah.
it like for you being on a residency with a smaller number of people?
It's just way more intimate. I enjoyed it, but I mean, when we were in France, um, we could only be in the chateau because it was like a very small little town where I was in Greece.
Mm,
I was with a
mm,
smaller group of people, but I had the whole island to explore. So
mm,
I ventured out a lot more. And then, like at the evenings, we would have like a little um, ouzo in the courtyard together. So yeah, I just feel
mm,
so many different residencies, and I can't even compare them. I just love all of them. I
mm.
don't think you can actually go wrong
Yeah.
with going on a residency.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. I don't think you can compare. I think it's such
Mhm.
a each one is incredibly unique, and it depends on your life stage, what's
Yeah,
happening in your career, your intention for going, and then it depends on the people, it depends on the location, like you say, what's in your surroundings,
yeah.
which I think has a very, very big impact as well.
Wow,
Mm.
but I am so impressed to hear you didn't have any withdrawal symptoms. You were just like thriving in the no digital space.
There were, I can say that there were maybe 2 or 3 moments where I noticed, when you have this urge to pick up your phone and check social media, like there were 2 moments where I could catch myself and be like, okay,
Wow,
if I had my phone, I would have done that now. And then
yes.
that disappeared very quickly, and I just carried on with what I was doing because it wasn't an option. So
I
that was
really think
interesting.
I really think our brains are craving some boredom. Like it doesn't want to look at stuff all the time.
Mm.
And if we do, it's just a habit. It's not our brain actually wanting it. Or maybe it is like because you get like a dopamine hit when you look at social media. So it just sounds like you gave your brain and your creative self a lot of space to get some clarity, to just like feel your
Mm.
essence. Like, hey, what do I actually,
Mm.
what does my inside feel like?
For sure. I think another part of it, for me at least, is community and connection. That was a big part of what I gained from the previous residency as well, is this the joy that I get from being amongst other creatives and sharing a studio space or having a studio space right next to each other. So the fact that we were all together and we were sharing creative space together as well as cooking together, that fed into that need for community and connection. And I think some for me at least, I think sometimes when I go on social media, it's to get some of that community or that connection. um so I just know that for myself.
Mm,
um and it is a way of getting some connection. I think you can build an incredible community on social media, but yeah, there's that need for in-person contact as well.
definitely.
And I experienced that very strongly during a residency.
Mm. My favorite social media interactions is like where you find someone or someone finds you and then you arrange a meetup. So social media should only for me be like the meeting place and then it
Mm,
goes on into real life. Otherwise it just stays then it's not really real.
mm. Yeah, to how to facilitate those in-person connections. And if you can't meet in person, how can you create another way of connecting?
So now I'm really curious to hear what kind of works did you create in this very magical space?
Yes, so I took a bit of time to settle into the residency, and I got that advice from Carolina and also from a few of the other facilitators at the residency. Kind of take your time to settle in, as in take your time to fully become present. So I didn't go with a set idea of, okay, I want to create this body. I knew that I wanted to create a body of work, but I didn't have a set idea.
On that note, sorry, what materials did you take with you? Like, what did you
Yes.
have to work with? I think that's also important.
Yeah, so I think the preparation part is important so that when you're there, you know that you have whatever it is that you need.
Yes.
Okay, so my half my suitcase, maybe even more, was filled with art materials. Like I packed so much art material, and then just a few summer dresses, basically. um, Okay, I love to work with watercolor. That's definitely one of my favorite mediums, and I often work in nature. And I've got a poshot box and a stand, so a little bit of a setup that allows me to work in nature, similar to an easel that I can pack up easily and put in my backpack. So that always goes with me. So I pack that. I packed two sketchbooks because I knew that it's a month, so I wanted to make sure that I had enough sketchbook materials. I
Mm-hmm.
packed a notebook for journaling, and it could add as a third sketchbook if needed. And then I packed paper pads. So I like working on pads that allow you to work with watercolor without it warping. So I packed those, and then I packed oil material, so material for oil painting, and a few canvases, and also paper that allows for oil painting.
Nice.
So I packed and a few oil pastels as well.
Yo,
So so yes,
pack
I
the
packed
whole
a
art
lot
shop.
of, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that I can just work
Yes.
depending on what arrives when I'm there. I'm able to work, and I've got a range of materials to work with, but predominantly watercolor and oil.
Nice. Okay, now we
Mm.
can get on to the work that you created with those things.
Yes. So, okay. So the first week was just spent on allowing my body to arrive fully in the space. And I think it takes a while, especially coming from being busy with work and also now um allowing myself to arrive in the space without having any digital distractions with complete strangers, at that time. So getting to know them and also getting to know the surroundings. So the residency is in a really beautiful area, and the forests are amazing. So
Mm.
Carolina mentioned before that the forests are just incredible, and it's difficult to imagine what it would be like until you're there, but it's just, I think Finland is just exceptional when it comes to forests, like the most amazing lichen and moss. It's just out of this world.
Yeah, I imagine a
Um,
fairy tale forest.
100%. It's like that.
Mm.
It's like moss upon moss upon moss,
Wow.
like these like layers of moss and lichen. It's really incredible.
Like at any
Um,
moment, unicorn can walk
for
past you.
sure. 100%. So, yes, so just getting to know the forest, just getting a sense of the surroundings, and these plants that I'm not really familiar with, new kind of plants. There's a beautiful lake as well. So I just immersed myself in the surroundings, and then initially I do like to work with my environment and what it is that I see, and that often influences my work. So, spend time in the forest, started working in my sketchbook, started doing little watercolor sketches sort of the lake and the surroundings and reflections on the lake. So, doing these like observational studies in some way. And just I just continued with that until at some point there was some figurative work that started coming into the work that I'm doing. A big part of this residency was the sauna, or
Mm.
sauna, depending on how you say it. So sauna is a big part of Finnish culture
Okay.
and tradition, and there's a sauna on the premises that we were allowed to use every second day. And that
Wow.
involves there's a bit of a ritual in setting up the sauna. So you would collect, they've got wood there, you would go get the wood, then you would it's birch wood, you would peel the bark of the birch wood, because that you use that as kindling to start the fire. Then you start the fire to heat up the sauna, and you make a fire to heat up the water that you use to wash before and during sauna. And that I'm mentioning it because it ended up being a very big part of my focus in terms of my work. I really enjoyed the experience of setting up the sauna just myself as well as with others. It involves an interesting sort of physical ritual. The sauna is on the edge of the forest. And so the light changes depending on the time of day. Just these beautiful scenes in the sauna. And the location, I'm jumping between things now, but it will come together. The where the residency is hosted, that premise is 100 years old. It used to be a school,
Mm.
and they think that the sauna was initially used by the headmaster of the school. So it's a very, very old sauna. It's been used for years and years and years. So there's a lot of tradition there as well. And it's this beautiful sort of wooden hut, wooden structure. So that was, although I'm familiar with going for saunas here in the UK, um, I think there's an added layer that I was exposed to because of the rich Finnish history when it comes to sauna and the tradition, setting it up. And so I think that started fascinating me, and then also observing the space and observing the people in the space as well. It ended up being the space where we shared wonderful stories, and a sense of community was built there as well. So that filtered into my work. So yes, I think that's interesting because I initially thought it would be very focused on nature, and I think that is where it started. But it definitely, in terms of my work, ended up being around the sauna experience, sharing the experience with others, also reflecting on my own experience, and that filtering into my work.
Hmm. Wow. Okay, so what I'm getting here is like not having any digital clutter. You had like a mental a cleansing, and then the sauna was the body cleansing. So it was like on both levels you had just like a very cleansing healing experience.
That's a beautiful way of seeing it. I've actually not seen it like that. As in you're connecting it to this mental space of not having distractions, and I think that's very accurate. And how these two elements in some way connect with each other, like speak to each other, and then results in a certain kind of experience. And what I
Mm.
can add to that perhaps is that when you, like, even for myself, I noticed that we're having an experience. You have your phone with you, and the immediate thing is to take a photo because it's a memorable experience. Perhaps you want to share it with someone else. So you take a photo, you send it to someone to say, I'm experiencing this beautiful sunset, share the sunset with me. And I think there's something beautiful about that, being able to share an experience with someone else. But in some way it can also detract from the experience. And so at the residency there wasn't that um ability to just quickly capture, although I had my camera with me, but I think when I took photos with my camera, it was a bit more intentional. I didn't always have my camera with me because you would kind of decide, okay, I do want to take my camera with me or not. So there were many moments where I didn't capture the moment. I was just present for it. I just experienced it. And that's also what's interesting is how that influenced my work because um also, when you're in the sauna, you're not taking a camera with you. You're not taking any sort of recording equipment. So I would often, after the experience, I would sit and try to sketch or draw what it is that I experienced. And I decided to work with memory in that way, not trying to capture the identical representation of what the space looks like, but rather trying to remember what are the bits that stand out to me. What did the light look like? What are the objects that caught my attention? What was the movement like in the space? Capturing the feeling of it rather than an accurate representation of the space. It's something that I've not explored much in the past. So, and that was also interesting in terms of my experience when being in a place, knowing that okay, I'll work with this content later, but let me fully be present so that I'm really taking in all the details. So I think that is something that will influence my work going forward, knowing that I can work with memory in that way.
Mm. Because I think our body, when we have a feeling, our body remembers the feeling. So you can always draw from it. Our body is actually a huge library of feelings that we can draw on. Okay, so you said like it took you a week to settle in, and then you had a kind of, I would imagine, in the middle was like productive. And how did you end? How did you end the residency again? How was the closing up?
Uh, yeah, that's so spot on. That is exactly how it happened. I think in the middle there was this peak, there was this peak of productivity and peak of creativity, and I could see it, I could sense it in myself, I could see it in the others around me. All the work was just like this culmination of the entire experience, and then the last week you almost start to become aware of this outside world
Mm,
because you know
unfortunately,
that you're
yeah.
you know that you're returning there, and you're starting to think ahead. Okay, I have my flight on this day, I need to catch a train. So there's a little bit of admin that you start to think about. You start to think about what else do I want to do. I had a few conversations with people at the residency at the time, because I think for me at least there was a moment where I thought, okay, have I created all the work now, or is there still more? I had a bit of a rest at some point as well. I think I felt like okay, I had quite a creative push in some way. Took a bit of a rest to try and see, okay, see what else needs to arrive, before I leave. So there was a final push as well in terms of the last little bit of work. And then just enjoyed being in the space in some ways similar to the beginning, um, enjoying the company as well as the specific places. So a lot of my work prior to this residency centered around connection to place. So that's something that's always been important to me. And this was not different at all. So we all went for walks in the forest, and I think these walks became a big part of our experience, this sort of daily ritual of going for a walk in the forest. So there's certain places that you feel like you want to say goodbye to in some way. So I have a final walk in the forest. And the last few days of the residency we had quite a bit of rain, so I didn't actually go into the forest. And then the second last day I went in, and the forest, it felt like the forest had changed completely just because of all the rain. And there
Wow.
were the most amazing mushrooms. Like if you say fairy tale, Lené,
Oh
like
my God.
imagine red, like massive red mushrooms. Those ones that you see in the fairy tales, it's like they're just so massive. So lots of mushrooms. And the forest floor is so soft because of all the moss that you're able to go barefoot. You can just walk the entire trail barefoot. So that was a really nice experience. Feeling, I think that also adds to the feeling of really fully being in a place.
Mm.
Um, so yes, went for a last walk in the forest, went to say goodbye to the lake, all the different places that we inhabited and now inhabit a space within us in some way.
And did you use your hammock?
I did.
Yay! That
I'm
was
so
such a
glad I
creative idea to take
took
one
it.
with.
Yeah, I think that hammock will now go with me to many 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 next adventures. But yes, no, that was lovely. I
Wow.
took a book with me, Braiding Sweetgrass, which is just an amazing book, and it was the perfect book to take along to this kind of residency in this special place. And yeah, I had many wonderful moments reading in the hammock when the sun was out.
And what would you tell people that are maybe interested in residencies or this residency in
Mm.
particular?
Yeah, I wish for everyone to experience the the joy of going on a residency.
Mm,
What would I say? I mean, there's so many different kinds of residencies. I think it is very much about what you're drawn to, both in terms of the natural environment as well as the kind of residency. It's difficult to know what a residency will offer you until you've been there. So even prior to this residency, there's this moment where you think, wow, it feels a bit daunting, or it's unknown. It's completely unknown.
mm,
A few photos online or the website, it can only tell you so much. And
mm,
at some point you need to trust that if you've applied, you've been accepted, then it's for you to
mm.
do.
And what do
But
you think the value is of a residency for a creative person?
I think as creatives we need space to dream. That is what comes to me now, that we need space to dream. And in day-to-day life, where your life is filled with many things, it's filled with admin, you need to do the laundry, you need to do the cooking, you need to do your business tasks, you need to see clients, do sales, there's so many different things that can be part of a life. Um, and I think those things add substance. But when you're removed from that for a bit and you can solely focus on your creative practice, I think there's something really, really special that happens. And what my experience has been is that when you allow yourself that bit of time, that filters into the rest of your life when you come back. And I think it can be creative fuel for a very long time.
Mm,
Plus, I think when you expose yourself to that kind of experience, often there's something new that emerges in your work.
mm,
Um, that's
mm,
just not come to the fore in day-to-day life. So it's that, and then for me it's also the people, having that kind of creative community, having people see your work, comment on your work, you see other people's work. And then
and
at the same time, I don't think a residency is possible for everyone. It might not be possible for various reasons. I've got friends who would like to go on a residency, but because of certain, childcare responsibilities or other responsibilities, it's just not possible. And so I think it's also worth thinking about or talking about how do we create some of this for ourselves in our day-to-day lives. How do we interact with other creatives? How do we find opportunity to talk about our work or see other people's work, and maybe to the point you raised earlier about social media. I think social media is a great way for us to show our work, and it's also a great way for us to see other people's work. But we cannot only interact on that digital platform. It has to be face to face as well, or we need a space of face to face interaction. The work looks different, when you see it in person. So I think that is what I'm left with again after this residency. And I had the same feeling after the one in France. And that was actually the impetus for starting this podcast. I remembered it this morning
oh
because
wow.
yes, because in at that time it was called Atelier Coffee Break, and
Yes.
we had a conversation on Instagram Live, and since then it's now morphed and it's got a different look and feel. But that was the impetus for it, because I felt so inspired and encouraged by having this sort of shared studio space. We would meet in the corridor, we would have a quick chat, we would have coffee, and and from there I could go back into the studio and work, and it just fueled me.
Mm.
And so I wanted to recreate some of that, at least in this way. How can we have conversations about our work? How can we have conversations about the joys and the challenges of being creatives and running businesses? So it
Mm.
was just interesting for me to remember that this morning, that, oh, okay, this is exactly why I started this podcast. Yeah.
Wow. So many crazy things can happen during and after a residency. Like you have absolutely no idea how that can change.
Mm.
That can literally like change the direction of your life even.
Yeah, you don't know exactly. It can have this incredible ripple effect.
Okay, so we have spoken about so many things, but I just want to hear your closing thoughts, your summary on this residency, what you're taking away from this experience, and how are you bringing that into your life now after it?
Okay. Oh, sure. There's many
Yeah, it's a
things.
lot to condense now.
Um, okay. I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is the connection, how as creatives we need to be connected to our bodies. Um, and I think it started with, not having digital distractions, but then also all the different practices that we had, walking in the forest barefoot, doing the sauna, as to create, we need our bodies to create. And I think if we're only interacting on a digital platform, or this is only the way that we work, perhaps on a computer, it's easy to lose connection to our bodies. So I think there's a need for movement, and there's need for practices that help us connect with our bodies. That's something I bring back for myself. Um,
Yes, because as creators, we're
mm,
living in our head. We're like, um, only we're only like working with ideas, and like because like when we work, we literally forget to eat sometimes. So if we can bring that all back into our body,
yes.
yeah.
Exactly, and also that's also part of what I experienced, with the people that I was with, the way we would share meals, and so that is also a way of nurturing your body, like nurturing your body through eating and through walking and through resting. That's also something that's come up in this podcast quite a few times when talking to other creatives, the importance of rest. So in some way, I also allowed myself to rest, and that was part of the residency. So, um, looking after the body, yeah.
Mm. And in today's
Mm,
world, to rest is literally like a rebellious act. We're like saying, I'm going against the rat race, and I'm not
mm,
valuing like anything that I can gain from it. I'm just actually stopping and saying, I
mm,
don't want to be part of the rat race.
yeah, absolutely. And then I think the other thing for me is just using technology in a mindful, intentional way. Um, I don't have an aversion to it. You know, the fact that I'm sitting here, this technology allows me to have this conversation with you are wonderful. So there's room for it, there's space for it. Had a wonderful conversation with Roberta. She's an artist, and she was at the residency, and we connected yesterday, and we spoke about how what are the takeaways from the residency. And she put it very well by saying that we we need to work collectively, or experience life collectively, to work individually, or to create individual work. And I thought that is so spot on. Because in all the different studios we would work on our own work, but it would be in a collective way. And now that collective interaction filters into the work that we do individually. So
We
yes, I think
are,
that's a massive takeaway for
yeah,
me.
we are social beings at heart. And I
Mm,
feel like creative types are definitely prone to be more like loners. but I think you get the best from your creativity when you are social, when you, like you said, you're alone together.
Exactly. That's such a good way of saying it. Exactly. Because we are drawn to, I'm the same. I love just going out on my own, painting in nature or
Yes.
being here, in my studio. So we're drawn to doing things by ourselves and processing our thoughts, processing our emotions. But remembering that we need that collective element. It's really, really important when it comes to nurturing our soul and yeah. So it's almost continuously coming back to that balance where we have both.
I
Yes.
love that. That's such a valuable thing to take with you. Lovely. Is there
Yay.
anything else that you would like to chat about?
No, I think this is a great place to end.
Okay, we
Yeah,
covered
it's a great place
everything.
to end. I
I am
think
so
so.
inspired by the experience you had and you sharing so openly. And I'm looking forward to seeing your Instagram and the work I'm connected with on there.
Yeah, it's at least it's a way to share it, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm grateful for that opportunity. So, thanks, Lené. Thanks so much for asking such wonderful questions and helping me reflect. And I think there's wonderful things that you mentioned now that I can add to my summary of this experience and what I'm bringing with me. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
The biggest pleasure. Thank you for being on my podcast.
See you next time.
See you next week. Bye.